sorry for that. Today meeting had been 10 o'clock, but you know that yesterday, very Azerbaijani famous professor died. For that, all this country, capital of Baku, changes all these programs, especially all the ministry program, rector programs. For that change of have been programs, today our guests meet to minister, and after that come, and today for our university historical day, because our university very strongly going discussion for different corporation from very famous in the world, very famous university of Corc Vaşinqton University. I like to introduce first our guest, academic dean of Corc Vaşinqton Education Faculty, Dr. Colin Green. Welcome, Colin Green. Thank you. No, academic, sorry. For now academic dean, Dr. Mukar Ferrer. Welcome. For vice dean, I think, vice dean of this faculty, Dr. Elizabeth Grant. And senior officer of this faculty, Mrs. Keita Brown. Welcome. And one is Azerbaijani beautiful girl from Janzi City. She is also a very famous Azerbaijani young researcher in Washington, Sevinç, and another one. And very our friends, 2 days and coming 3 days, very close to work us. He also American-based education, but he is hardly work for Azerbaijan education system, head of this international relations department of Minister of Education, Mr. Nicat Gönmerli. Thanks for your Today, our meeting invited some of deans, which deans that programs have good English language students, also some of professors. Today invite this meeting, I think, for this meeting, for our students, for our guests, very useful. I maybe give some small information. After that, I invite our guest. He present you some information about Corc Vaşinqton University, about for future cooperation. Yesterday in Buba, our representatives and Corc Vaşinqton University delegation, very heartily, very friendly, discuss our cooperation, have idea for establish in master level double degree program between Corc Vaşinqton University and State University of Pedagogy. Now I'm going conversation. I think coming days also going, but I give you some good news that to university today, and also to Azerbaijan mass media, that he ready for cooperation, he prepared some joint statement. I think for next academic year, not coming after coming academic years, that means September to 2020, our program ready and receive that type of students who is have good results English and who is have admission to from DIM, that means Central Exam Committee. That students have chance in Baku, full participate students from Corc Vaşinqton University in Baku, one branch of Corc Vaşinqton University in Baku. And thanks for our guests, thanks for colleagues, thanks to Ministry for support, and he understand our processing, our questions, our some remarks. I think these are all things for us, this technical, for political level, and for government, for Ministry of Education, ready for cooperation, but mind some good cooperation tracks. and a common approach. I like to invite for Dean of Corc Vaşinqton University for Education Science, maybe I don't know, Education Science and Human Development, for Colin Green, Dr. Colin Green. No, sorry. Mikhail Ferrer, sorry. Yeah. And after that, maybe you have some questions. Please welcome. Maybe try to give answers to the question.
Good afternoon. How's the English? Okay? That's important, because if you don't understand what I say, then you can't ask me questions. Okay, Corc Vašington. Who knows something about Corc Vašington? First president? The university, which has his name, was established in 1821. That means we will have our 200th birthday party, and ASPU will have the 100th birthday party. That means that ASPU has achieved what we are achieving in half the time. But now we're going to try to bring our programs together and develop a new partnership. I want to tell you a little bit about Corc Vašington University. First, something special about Corc Vašington himself. He was a great believer in education. In fact, when he made his first speech to the United States Congress in 1790, I was not yet born, but sometimes I feel like I was. But it's a very important moment in American history when Corc Vašington spoke to the people, to the United States Congress, and he said, "There is nothing which deserves more of your attention." He used some other fancy words, which even some Americans might not understand, so I'm not going to burden you. But he said, "Nothing is more important for your consideration, your attention, and your investment as a government than science, education, literature, and the advancement of the human mind." That's what Corc Vašington believed. So, he had a dream to establish in Washington, D.C., the nation's capital, which actually didn't get his name until later. But he had a dream to establish in the capital of the United States of America an institution of higher learning dedicated to the advancement of the public good and the public service. Everybody with me? Yeah. So he didn't live to see the dream, but the Congress established the university in 1821 as a way to commemorate President Washington's idealism and his vision about education. So now here we are, 200 years later, 100 years after ASPU, and I think President Washington would be very happy and proud to know that we are close to having a nice new partnership between our universities. We have today at GW, about 25,000 students, 10,500 in the first degree program, the undergraduate, going for bachelor's degree, 15,000 in graduate and professional, medicine, public health, engineering, law, and most importantly, education. So in our School of Education and Human Development, we have about 1,400 students. They are all getting degrees in counseling, special education, curriculum and pedagogy, policy, leadership, human and organizational learning, a very nice combination of opportunities for people who are preparing to become professionals in this world of education, which covers a lot of territory. Our graduates go on to work in schools, in school districts, which is a kind of a governance mechanism, in universities where they're doing research, in institutions of research, in the government, in clinics, in counseling centers, in community centers, in museums, in places where children with special needs and different kinds of learning and physical disabilities are being educated. And it's a place where there is a bringing together, a convergence of people, both on the faculty and among the students, who have all different kinds of special interests in terms of where they want to work, but they share a very common ideal that education is the main determinant, the main factor, the main vitamin for social advancement, for opportunity, and for the improvement of the human condition. We are delighted to be contemplating and starting to plan the details for a program that will actually enable our faculty to be teaching with you and some of our graduate students to participate in research and even in teaching with you, and for you to get a chance to interact with us. And we actually believe, my colleagues who are here with me and my many other colleagues who are waiting for us to come home and tell them what we did here, they believe that we at GW will be very lucky to have this opportunity to meet with you, to study with you, to learn with you, and to go forward together in a cooperation and a collaboration that advances our two universities and our societies. The last thing I'll say is that at GW there is a very strong interest in education as a form of global cooperation and even, I would say, diplomacy. And it's very interesting because the university physically is situated really just in the center, right at the heartbeat of the American government. If you go 2 blocks to the east, you go to the World Bank. if you go 5 blocks to the east, you'll bump into President Trump at the White House. And if you keep walking east, you'll go to the Congress. And all of that is right in our neighborhood. So it's a wonderful opportunity to experience, even if you're not coming there immediately, but we will figure out ways for you to get a taste of Washington and how important education is to the life of the American democracy by this cooperative project that we have in mind. So I'm happy to meet with you. I'm happy to be here. It's my second time in Baku. I am back in Baku, and we are very honored to be working with your leaders here at ASPU, with our friends in the ministry, and with the many wonderful friends we have made even in just a few days here. And I'm happy to answer questions if you have any. And otherwise, you'll be happy that I don't have anything else to say. Yes.
Microphone. Who is question? Please provide. Or maybe some of staff members have questions.
Firstly, hello, and I want to say I would get you some for your food. Yes, my name is Saida. I study at this University of Biology Professional, Chemistry and Biology Faculty. And I want to say, I want to ask about fee or scholarship or about money for study. Because we don't want, even all of them don't want burn it with parents, and we want to stand up for ourselves. And I want to say which of the study without with a little bit minimum money.
It's good. You are correct to be thinking about that. American higher education is a magnificent institution. And I mean that without any hesitation or joking. It has a long history of evolving from even that idea that George Washington had into what I would call an ecology of universities and colleges that serve a huge number of people. In fact, I think if you look at some of the historical data, the representation, the enrollment of Americans in higher education, in spite of the cost, has been steadily rising. So you ask yourself, how can it be that a system which is so expensive has been able to embrace, to bring in such a tremendous number of people from all different social and economic levels? And the answer is essentially based on 3 or 4 considerations. One, the idea that individuals benefit from education personally, and therefore it is not inappropriate for them to be expected to pay something. How much is a big argument, but something. The second, that the system produces social benefits. Therefore, society should pay for some of the costs. So we have a very elaborate system of state funding, federal subsidies, and other forms of public support to take some of the pressure off of the individuals who have to pay the whole cost. The third part of this is a very elaborate system of public and private funding of research which takes place in universities, which enables students who are doing research to benefit. And again, the reason is that there is this public and private investment because the returns will be spread across the whole society. Now, the fourth thing I will say is that we also have a system in which people can borrow money. And there again, we're involved in a very hot debate. One of the people who wants to be president in 2020 has just announced his plan to completely eliminate all of the $1.6 trillion that Americans have in student debt. How he's going to do that, we're waiting to hear. But it's a very important issue. So the short answer to your question is, there are opportunities for foreign students to get loans, grants, participate in research, and have what we call, one way or another, financial aid that takes some of the pressure off of their own pocketbook. But I would encourage everybody to keep in mind that because there's going to be an individual return on the investment, you should prepare yourselves to be willing and able to pay for something. And all the rest is in, you know, the details. And we at Corc Vašington University, it's a very high tuition, it's a high cost of education, but it's also a very high percentage of discount through different kinds of financial aid. And other than that, I wish I could write you a check today and come on over. It's not that easy, but I think you'll find opportunities that are worth thinking about.
Thank you very much.
So maybe I added some words. I think students sent question for our program, when our program start, for local students, for our students, how much? Maybe I give you a clear question for that. Any case, inshallah, our corporation give results, and university coming education year start in September, double diploma program in master. Any case, students not paid Corc Vašinqton tuition fee, Azerbaijan government paid for that. Who is like join this program? He needed two requirements. One is this IELTS 6.0. Second, for admission state exams for master to this program. About financing for Corc Vašinqton University level, this is our government take responsibility. Who is have question? After that for you.
Hello, welcome to Azerbaijan. My name is Dinyat. I study in the Azerbaijan State Pedagogical University. I want to ask, I'm interested in the world education. The world education is very important for me. In my opinion, it's very interesting and very very important things. What is main thing in American state, American education? For students, the main thing, education, the main thing.
You mean in terms of international education?
Yes, what's the main thing in the student, in education? Esas təhsilin kökündə esas nəyin tutulur? Bir tələbə üçün təhsilin kökündə esas nəyin tutulur?
What is the advantage? I need a little translation help here from one of my...
What is the core element in the philosophy of American education?
Okay. And by the way, I'm happy if any of my colleagues would like to join me in answering these very interesting and challenging questions. There's a big, maybe I'll give you two ways of thinking about what's different about American education. First of all, in the way it is organized. We have a system of elementary and secondary education which is primarily the responsibility of our state and local governments. And that means that we have a very big opportunity for disparity and for difference when you go from one community to another. If you are flying across America and you fall out of the plane, which I'm not encouraging this as an experiment, just think about it, there's a good chance you will land in one of the best schools in the world, and there's a good chance you will land in one of the worst schools in the world, and sometimes they're just 3 kilometers apart. So one difference about American education is that it is not really a system as much as a collection of all kinds of systems. That's one thing to keep in mind. Makes it very complicated to think about standards, to think about national goals for education. I mean, all of this is very complicated because we have this history of a system that was designed for dispersion and diffusion and difference. The second thing I would say is that we have a remarkable combination of public and private models, especially for higher education. Overwhelming majority of American university students go to public colleges and universities. George Washington is part of a very important segment of private universities. And you can look across these different sectors, and some of the public universities are excellent, and some of the private universities are excellent, and they have different financial systems, and they have different sources of support, and again, a great amount of variety. Which means that a student finishing high school and contemplating going on to university has a lot of choices to think about. And we don't have a really good system of information other than, you know, some ratings and some rankings and some ways in which we have written down what are the differences, what are the characteristics of colleges and universities. But ultimately, it is a matter of the choices that students and their families make and the choices that the universities make about who may come and be part of the community. Maybe I'll add one more thing about the difference. I think overall in American education there is a philosophy of inquiry and a philosophy of individual expression and a philosophy of argumentation. And if you walk into a typical American college classroom, certainly at the graduate level, you will find an opportunity to answer a professor who says, here's an idea, tell me what's right and wrong about this idea, and make a good case for it using your best analytical thinking. As opposed to, here is my conclusion, write it down, and then at the end of the semester, tell it to me back. So there is a philosophy of interaction and inquiry and argumentation. And that's something that if you come to study with us at GW, or any American university, I think, you will need some time to get adjusted to that kind of spirit of communication between professors and their students. I won't say which country this was, but I was once in a country where a very distinguished professor of literature said to me, you know, these American students, they come to my classroom and we're talking about Shakespeare, and they raise their hand and they say, well, I think this and I think that. And I said to them, what do you mean you think? I'm here to do the thinking. You just listen to what I'm telling you. And that's, of course, a little bit of an exaggeration, but it's very much part of the American philosophy of teaching and learning to encourage the development of individual, not just opinion, but individual rational thought. Does that give you something to think about? I don't know if I answered your question, but I enjoyed giving the speech.
Second question.
Firstly, welcome to Baku. I'm Ravel, physics teacher in physics department, physics faculty. My question will be about the faculties. Which faculties are mostly of your interest? Or in other words, draw your attention? Or you want to cooperate with? Mostly which faculties? Thanks in advance.
Okay, very good question. So, the program that we are initially developing is mostly one about educational leadership and policy and some research methods and some ideas about engagement with curriculum, but mostly from the standpoint of providing a basis for professionals who will go into education policy and administration. Now, one can approach that as if it didn't matter what the subject was. But I think we would prefer to think that if you're going to be doing education policy that affects the future of science and mathematics education, it's probably a good idea to have some fluency in at least some science and mathematics. Just as we know in curriculum and in teaching theory that there is a difference between pedagogical knowledge and content knowledge, and that actually what we're trying to do is a convergence. I think the same would be said for people going into administration, that if you're going to be advising the government on the future of the physics curriculum at the state level, it's not a bad idea to know some physics. And exactly how we're going to do that is a matter of the details. But I would love to think that we will find ways to interact with faculty in many of the disciplines that are represented here. The other thing I would say is that now at Corc Vašington, we are beginning to raise the priority for what we call STEM education, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And I think there's a good argument that, you know, the future of the free world depends on the capacity of people to understand, apply, interpret, and cope with advances in science. And for that, we want more people to be prepared. So I don't want to give the wrong answer here to suggest that some faculties will be more connecting with us than others. I think that's a really interesting thing that will develop as our partnership grows, and we will have opportunities for that kind of thing. Since you're in physics, I can tell you that we have at GW some people doing marvelous work on physics teaching. And some of them are actually trained in physics originally and moved into education. And now I'll say something which I hope you won't be offended by. But when I was at the National Academy of Sciences and people said, "Oh, are you in the hard sciences?" And I think what they meant was physics. I said, "No, I'm in the very hard sciences, education." And there's an opportunity in the world of education policy and research to bring together the models and the philosophy and the knowledge from physics, chemistry, mathematics, and environmental science as a way to reinforce the quality of education policy and research. So it's an ongoing project, and you know, whenever we talk about the importance of STEM, the English department and the history department, they get worried that we're going to somehow neglect them. For me, it's not at all a matter of one over the other. It's a matter of finding the right kinds of bridges to build. So welcome. And I remember one thing from physics. I hope it's still true. Force equals mass times acceleration. Still true?
Thank you. For time management, have other meetings. Last 1-2 question, please. Yeah.
First of all, hi.
Hi.
Welcome to Azerbaijan. I am Fatima, and I'm 17 years old. And I want to say I'm so excited to see you in this our country. And oh my God, I'm so right now. I want to know about. It's my dream. First of all, it's my dream to go abroad because I want to know general about psychology faculties, about psychology. I'm psychologist. I'm future psychologist. I studying in this university, and I want to go forward. To know general about psychology, and I want to know your the system of psychology faculties in your university.
I'm missing one word here, the psycho part.
Psychology. Yes, yes.
So you are interested in experimental psychology, clinical psychology, social psychology, industrial psychology?
Yes, I want to know general psychology. Yes.
You will have to make some choices about where to pursue the graduate work in psychology. As I said before, the American university system, it's not a centralized curriculum. You will see different schools, different universities, different colleges that have different points of emphasis. I know that at Corc Vašington University we have a very strong program, in our School of Education, in essentially clinical mental health counseling, which is heavily rooted in psychology. We have very strong opportunities in educational psychology, which means the theory of teaching and learning and human information processing. And then other schools, other universities, have their areas where they would really shine within this broad thing called psychology. My personal recommendation would be that you think about psychology connected to at least one other discipline. Think about psychology and politics. Think about psychology and economics. And there, I believe, is where the future is going to be when we build the bridges between those subspecialties and find ways to apply that knowledge to all kinds of different situations, personal, organizational, and even institutional and national. So keep working on it. It's great stuff. We have to go on, don't we? I mean, we're finished.
No, last one question and one speech.
And by the way, I'm just as excited to see you, so it's very nice.
Hi, you're welcome. Thanks for partnership and collaboration. My name is Kunay Efendieva from English Department, Azerbaijan State Pedagogical University. Thank you and thanks our management that they open horizons in front of our students. But what about teachers? Are our exchange program of teachers included on this work? Are you planning sometime to, as an educator, I always dreamed to go to America, not a tourist, but as a teacher, to feel the environment, to pick up main points of your education system and return back and implement it in our university. Is it possible? Is it considered? Is it considered our teachers' exchange program?
I love the question.
Yes, thank you.
My impulse is to say that we have opportunities for educators in different countries to come and spend some quality time working with educators in the US. I don't actually have a good answer about whether and how you would actually be able to teach in an American school. That's a complicated question, but I'm going to ask one of my colleagues here, academic dean, Colin Green, who was going to whisper some answers to me. Do you want to just give a little bit of a footnote on this?
Good afternoon. So, thank you for your question. As Dean Foyer noted, if you wanted to teach in an American primary or secondary or high school, that can be somewhat complicated. However, an exchange to a university we sort of know a little bit more about that because that's what we do. So in the Graduate School of Education at Corc Vašington University, we have a visiting scholars program that allows faculty members from other countries around the world to come, spend a semester, spend a year possibly with us.
The question essentially was about whether this our partnership, this double degree program will include
well, it could have possible an exchange
of teacher pool.
Possible exchange of teachers.
We don't require a long time, maybe 3 months, maybe 6 months.
Okay, so the possibility of you as an English education faculty member coming to Corc Vašington University to see what we do, particularly in your fields. Yes, we hope that as this program begins to develop and grow, that the opportunities for faculty professional development from ASPU to GW, and GW to ASPU, that those will absolutely be available. Yes. Perhaps not in the first year, it may be in the second or third year. And there's also the possibility that you will teach. There will be opportunities for faculty here to teach in the program. And we would love then for you to come and see how we typically interact with American graduate students, so that if you teach in the program here, you can do the same. So I hope that that will be possible, not in year 1, probably in year 2, year 3, once we get the program up and running. So thank you, Nijat, for redirecting my comments so that I was answering your question correctly.
Thank you. Maybe for future discussion about this agreement, also maybe think about. Please, one last. I changed my decision. Our professors like one question.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for being here. Actually, we are very happy to see you all stuff. So it's like a dream. Corc Vašington University is probably the best. I know in some areas you are the best university ever. In the world, it's like a dream for us to see professors and teaching staff here at university in Azerbaijan. So welcome to Azerbaijan. We are thrilled that we are having such a chance to cooperate with your university. I understand that this great job is ahead. It will be a lot of work, it will be a lot of decisions, a lot of projects, etc., etc. My question is, do you have such kind of experience with other countries? When you have master schools or something like this kind of projects in other countries, how are they going? How are they developing? What are results actually, and what is your vision on such programming here in Azerbaijan? Okay,
Wonderful.
thank you so much for being in here.
Well, thank you very much. As I said, one of our priorities in the university and in the School of Education is finding different ways to develop collaborations and partnerships with our friends and colleagues in other countries. We have, I think it's now almost concluded, we have had a very interesting program with a university in Saudi Arabia, where for several years we were working with them on the development of a master's and I believe also a doctoral track in educational administration. We have research partnerships with colleagues in Israel, in England. We're developing a new one in France. These are not exactly instructional programs yet. We're starting in some of these places more on the research side. But we have all kinds of things. One of our colleagues has spent much of his career teaching and collaborating with education schools in the Far East, in Japan and Cambodia, in other countries of the Far East. Another of our colleagues is doing work with universities in Germany. We have another colleague who has done a lot of work in Spain. So we're trying out different formulas. I have to say that for me and for us, the idea of this partnership with Azerbaijan touches on all kinds of really exciting little nerve endings for us. It's a dynamic economy and society on the move toward progress. It is a society, as I understand from reading and speaking to people here, where there has been a serious investment in human capital. There is a spirit of the public good, of education as a public good. Your Vice Rector has now pointed out that this program will enable ASPU students to study for a degree from Corc Vašington University funded by your ministry. That's very significant. It is an expression of the national belief that investment in education pays off. So we're delighted to be here. And as you said, now comes the work of the details, but we're very optimistic. I mean, we have a foundation now, a layer of ideas that we think this is just going to be a wonderful partnership. So I'll be back. I'll see you again soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you. You see here's the condition of their academic dean, but he like maybe sit extra 1 hour for our question. But I friendly share with my colleagues and our guests. Now in university go very hard with exam session. Also yesterday change of our agenda give not good opportunity to collect everybody, all these professors and students who have good language. But I think for future you have chance. You meet all this full this who have good language and good idea. I like to invite one beautiful girl. She's from US, but originally from Azerbaijan. She's also secondary school in bachelor education in country, but she's have chance, have education, good education, I think PhD education for in Corc Vaşinqton University. I like to invite Sevinç Hanım Mehmetova share and give advice our students, that means your successors.
I have a choice speaking in Azerbaijani or in English, so what language would you prefer? English, okay, well, they're demanding English. I'll be quick. I just want to say that 15 years ago, I was a student like you at Ganja State University, and I was passing by the hallway when I heard someone speaking English, and I said, oh, I'll just go and see what they're talking about. And 15 years later, I'm in DC. I'm doing my doctoral degree in education policy, and I work in one of the leading consulting firms that do a lot of development work. So I want to talk about the importance of education, because you're at the place where, if you're here, it means that you understand that it's important to invest in education. It's important to be dedicated to improve the education system in the country. But I want to talk about the opportunities, because you might fly to different countries to study, to do your master's, PhD, but if you're not able to turn opportunity into a practical tool to benefit from that,
to improve your skills, your competitiveness, then you won't be able to succeed. It doesn't matter if you're in the United States, if you're in Azerbaijan, you should always look at opportunities and how you can benefit from those opportunities to be one of the leading key figures in countries like Azerbaijan. I think this is a great opportunity, since we're speaking about opportunities. This program will bring lots of great chances for everyone, for students, for faculty. It will have a lot of great spillover effects, so you may not be directly involved in this program, but you will get to interact with different students and faculty members. So to do that, you have to improve yourself. You have to improve your English language. You have to improve your other skills, soft skills, that will give you opportunity to become part of this program. So you still have time. Take this chance, improve yourself, and jump into the opportunity and become part of the change. Because after 15 years, after 10 years, I'm assuring you, you will be the students standing here giving speeches to the other students that are coming up. Again, I'm an example. I grew up in a very conservative family, so my family didn't let me to study in the capital. They said, you're a female, you have to stay with us. But then I worked with my family to show them that, if I have a goal, I want to help my country, I want to make sure that I'm using my full potential, not to just help myself, but at the same time the country. I was able to prove that to my parents, so they let me go study and become the person I am today. So looking at your face, I see lots of potential. So you have time, work on yourself, make yourself ready for the next year, maybe next 2 years, and then you will benefit from this great chance, and you will become one of the leading maybe policymakers, maybe education specialists, or maybe school principals. So I think this is a great chance for everyone, for us too. We would like to know, well, I'm Azerbaijani, I know the system, but I think the US faculty, they will also appreciate to learn from you too. So take initiative, be part of the change, and we hope to see you, these faces, in the admission process. And as we move forward, we would like to see additional students, additional faculty members, that you should remember that you are going to be the main players, key players in this program. We will provide the teaching and we will provide opportunities, but you will be the people implementers of the program. So you will be the backbone of this program. So I won't be long. Thank you so much for coming here today, and you'll probably see us soon, maybe next year, maybe in winter, and we look forward to working with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Sevinç Hanım. Teşekkürler. Dear colleagues, dear guests, our students, this is some of info session. University give you a chance, inform you for corporation, have potential corporation, inshallah, end of this year, to university come some negotiation, and February maybe give announcement, and you have chance, teachers and students who have good language skills, English, to apply for master students that program, and apply for these faculty members or some of assistant or some management. This is some general info session. Maybe some of them have question, not have chance. I ready for coming days, invite you and meet you and discuss you about what's this tricks, what's this possibility, what's this you possible, some self-ready for preparation and development for this opportunity. Thanks a lot. Thanks to our guests for your time and your contribution. Thank you.
Hello. zaman mən demişim məktəbi yazılışlar və danışmışam. Rəşad da gəldi.